Okay, to move back to our original topic.
Yeah, you can edit that.
To move back to our original topic, you made yourself pretty clear on the emphasis on the individual rather than the identity. But I'll play devil's advocate here and say...
You do all the time, Alex, which is it's great to have you in the class.
Yes, but...
Because you do that.
Okay, so to play devil's advocate, I could argue that if someone looks like me, or acts like me, or is of the same group as me, then I would relate more to them, and therefore I should support them because of their identity being closer to mine. And perhaps, like the case you brought up with Obama, a lot of African Americans thought that, hey, if we put one of us up there, he's going to help us increase our, let's say, wealth and our well-being, right?
Yeah, and the element that it's a milestone and a great achievement.
Yeah.
Also, like with Hillary Clinton, it's like
vote for me because I'm going to be the first woman president.
And that's like and they say something like, well, you know, we're in a modern era and it's a great milestone to represent such a modern society.
Yeah.
Right, but you forget one thing. Although I'm black, we're not all homogeneous. Very much heterogeneous. We think differently. The only thing that perhaps we have in common is melanin. That's the only thing. It doesn't impact on our everyday lives in terms of what I like, what I dislike. The only thing we have in common is that melanin. So as a black group, and this is where I think about it, you know, as a black group, yes, we need to get together and fight certain things and fight inequalities. But I'm also an individual in that group, and I want to express my individuality. I've only got one life. Now, if we need to get together to fight systems, I'm happy to do that. And if I was in London, yeah, I'd be marching.
So
All right.
Depends what kind of systems, though.
No, but you're saying that like the factor that people want to vote for a in-group represent someone that represent their in-group. It does not play a role in making a decision on what you support.
No, because it has to be what I believe.
Yeah,
if I believe in, let's talk about abortion. If I believe, if I do not believe in abortion, then there's no way, if it means that much to me, then there's no way I'm going to be voting for a party that allows abortion. Or, so if I,
right.
What did I say? If I don't believe in abortion,
you don't need to vote for
I would not
yeah.
vote for a party that believes in abortion. But it depends on how much that issue means to me. Now, I'm not going to vote for Trump or not vote for Trump because I don't like a 70-year-old man who I believe is racist. Maybe I'm going to be looking at the greater good. Maybe my stocks and shares will do better if I vote for Trump rather than Biden. And if my stocks and shares do better, maybe I'm going to be in a position where I can help somebody within my race. Maybe I can help to do. So I'm looking at other ways rather than just the blanket is a white racist. This is my politics.
And but so like the fact that they even like you'll even be proud that it would be like the first woman or the first whatever.
Actually,
that's not.
Yeah, it factors. It means something.
So it plays a small part.
So, but I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton until Barack Obama came along, if I could vote. But, because my daughter is American, I'm in America all the time. But when Barack Obama came along, Hillary Clinton, whether she was the first woman or not, I wanted a black person as a president. It happened in my lifetime.
So you do take into consideration of that pride.
Yeah, and so I vacillate. I move from one to, depends on what is important for me.
So you would say...
So I don't have to align myself with one party because I should.
So, yeah, you would say individuality and your own opinions on certain issues and topics and policies, let's say in the case of politics, would be overarching,
For me.
Yeah.
For me. I'm not led blindly just because people say and society say this is the way it should be. Never have been.
Okay,
Always been an
what
outlier.
about something like more, like let's say,
More
like
social, yeah.
like feminism, right?
Yeah.
You want to go there? Are you sure?
I mean,
Well, we're not
because-
making
well,
any value
look,
judgments here.
There's an
Are you
issue.
sure?
There's an issue when we talk about the U.S. is that I know nothing about the U.S. Basically, if we could move on to a more social topic, maybe in the U.S., maybe in Europe. Better for Europe, and Europe would be a bit better,
Maybe French like?
maybe French, yes, but in Europe, yeah. So I think,
Or maybe even in
because-
China.
because
right?
because
I'm happy to talk about.
identity politics doesn't only involve what really political issues in the U.S. It also could be, for example, if a person obtains a German passport, but they're ethnically completely Chinese. You know what I mean? Like, if I give you an example, like I'm
I know
thinking,
exactly what you mean.
yeah, and then they claim they're German just because they have the documents, but
Are they really German?
are they German though? Because if you grow up, for example, you're Japanese, both their parents are Japanese. You grew up in Japan or China. You have the German passport. Are you really German? You don't speak German. You have no hint of German culture inside you. Are you German or Japanese?
Are you trying to? I mean, I identify with your question so much. I was born in England,
Yeah.
but am I really English?
Well, look, the thing is, I'd argue that you were English because, well, you spent most of your life in England, I suppose, right? You grew up there, your mannerism, your mœurs, all of that is, you act like a British woman.
In your eye, but in others, no. What about you? Let's talk about you.
What about me?
Yeah, you're our
You're French.
prestige
I'm-
half.
Oh, I am.
our-
He is a very
Controversial. No, I'm not.
textbook type half because like he was born in Hong Kong
Yes.
and grew up in Hong Kong, speaks Cantonese. Her mother is Cantonese, but you know he also speaks French. Went to a French school.
Yeah.
French passport. His father is French. So
I
it's
just
like
think it's so amazing. I think it's so good that you can do all of those things and you're a global child.
Thank you, miss.
Yeah,
You
but
too.
do you still have identity issues?
I never had identity issues.
Never.
No.
Okay.
I relate. I'm from Hong Kong, but I'm also French. That's all I say.
no, I mean the problem with the
That's
identity.
great.
These people
That's really
who
good.
No, but
cannot identify their.
It's hard.
I think, but that's more from I think that's because from a social pressure. Like,
yeah.
but I think when you have it's easier if you have from like for me, I'm just Chinese 100%. I never have anything else, so I have an inherent like I feel inherently comfortable in China, and that's very obvious and a very evident factor or like feeling to know that where you're from. But I think these other people who have a problem with identity is from the social pressure. Like,
So you're a true patriot.
not a patriot, but like I can.
There's nothing wrong with patriotism.
No, but like it's like
To an extent.
I can
To an extent.
To an
I
extent.
can tell exactly that I'm Chinese, and it's not that
But yeah.
it's not like I just know like I don't say like I have an Australian passport.
Mm.
If I have more than one passport, but I don't say I'm from any of those countries because I know
Alright.
because to me they're just a tool.
And yet I've talked to students who have these dual passport and identify with the countries outside of China more than they do.
That's
But it
why.
depends on how long you stay in a particular country.
But that's you see that's the confusing aspect because if they go to those countries, for example, let's take the Japanese-German case again. If this Japanese person or German person, because they hold the German passport, if they went to Germany, they don't speak a word of German. They act in a conservative Japanese manner. They speak Japanese. The Germans there will not see them as one of their own, but they will believe they're German. So again, it's very confusing, and I just don't see the point in it. Really.
In point in what?
I think
Trying
because-
to
I think
be
Being something you're not.
not saying you're not.
Basically.
yeah, like
Well,
if I,
maybe they identify with that more than they do with Japanese culture, or maybe they want to.
They want, but wanting and being is too. It's not
like I think what Matthew's point is like there's people who is clearly from
who are clearly.
who are clearly from one culture,
Mm.
or like you can tell that they their behavior is from one culture,
They aspire
but
to be.
yeah, but they try to adopt another culture
I
simply.
don't think we should be in a position to judge. Again, it's for the individual to choose which culture they align themselves more with.
Well,
But
to be
I-
honest,
Okay, true. Yeah.
this is quite a big issue, especially in an international school like this,
Schools,
right?
yeah.
And in a place like China, which I'd say most of our student population would probably identify themselves as something other than Chinese. So if you take me for an example, I'm ethnically 100% Chinese. I'm not. No, I'm
He's
not.
turning Japanese.
100% Chinese. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I kind of thought that example was pretty much me, but
You
But
know
yeah,
who-
sorry,
you know who I am.
German, right?
You know who I am.
You got German.
I have a German passport, right? But I don't really identify with German culture. I am more westernized than Chinese for sure, but I feel like it's more of an American westernized. You can hear from my accent,
Yeah.
probably my mannerisms. It's
Yeah.
more American than, say, German.
Yeah.
But because I have this official document saying that I am an official citizen of this country, but I was born and raised here in China, but my cultural influences come from the U.S. So for me and a lot of students in the community, I think this creates quite a bit of conflict with their own identity and what to believe in.
But it's what brings you together as well, and I think that's why the collegiality in this school amongst the international students is quite strong because of it. And I think it's a positive, and it's not just you as students, it's teachers as well, because of exactly what you say. When I go to England, I don't really have a pronounced British accent. I have a Jamaican accent and a little bit of an American accent thrown inside, and people say, well, your accent is not really British, where are you really from? So I go back there and I say, almost like I'm a stranger in a country that I was born in and been raised in for over 20 years, you know. Then I went other places to live, and so I'm obviously I'm older than 20.
Couldn't tell.
Oh, stop it.
I mean,
Yes.
you said like we shouldn't be in a position to judge because people should
Actually,
people like they can choose, right?
I think so.
But my argument against that would be like, if you have the ability or the choice to even choose, that would be conflicting with the fact with what culture is, like who you are, or who your
Yeah.
identity
Who
is.
determines culture?
No,
Shouldn't it be?
I think because to me, I think identity is a innate element. It's something
Exactly.
that
It's something you can build as well, though.
It's something you can build, but it's also something you're
yeah,
given.
but that's
Like
not.
when
I don't
you-
think that's who you are anymore. Like who you are is something that is inherent to you. It's something that you can just feel natural with, not something that is learned.
It's not fabricated.
I'm not going to use age, but as you get older, you find that it becomes very fluid, flexible. You get married to somebody who, from a totally different culture, you're willing to embrace that culture.
Mhm.
You lose probably a little bit of yours, but it does change as you get older. It's inherent. It's there inside you, especially Chinese culture is very strong. The family, the food, etc., and the work ethic, very strong, very hard, and people. It's a beautiful trait to carry
Yeah,
through.
I'm not saying
However,
like
it doesn't mean that because you're Chinese, you're gonna always remain Chinese, does it?
No, I'm not. I'm
No,
not saying that. I'm just saying like.
And maybe it is. Is it? It's,
I'm saying that you can. It's a great trait to like to be able to subscribe to other culture and like
Yeah,
adopt.
subscribing to other cultures. I like that. I like how no, actually, I really like that.
Like,
yeah, but
you
now
know,
you've lost this train
I'm
of
sorry.
thought.
Go
like
on.
you can like for example, I've been exposed to American culture, and I take in like factors of it, but like my point is like it's a great trait to have, but at the end of the day, it's like I think the problem arises when even after you have adopted or subscribed to other cultures, people cannot identify who they are anymore.
Do you think that's important for you for you to see that in people?
To
It's
know,
got to be clear. This is my culture, and this is who I am. Is that's
No.
important to you? Is it?
I think it's important that to know who you are does not have a conflict with a foreign culture that you've learned to adapt it. I think there's a difference. I think there's a fine line. Like you can act in a different culture, you can love the other culture. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But when the social pressure from that culture kind of crosses the line,
Moves into you.
yeah, and then kind of just like makes you confused of who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's where
Can I ask you a personal question as a result of what
Yes.
you just said? Would you marry somebody outside of your culture?
Yeah. No, I would. Like, there's nothing like, but like, yeah, I would.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with like. There's nothing like. I wouldn't like say. But let's say I married someone from, I don't know, like France. Let's say, right? I want to say I wouldn't be to a point where I'm like, oh, I don't know, I may be French. It's still like I'm still Chinese.
Yes,
but
Right.
that's definitely something.
I've learned to adapt to French culture,
Mhm.
and maybe I speak French. But at the end of the day, I'm still a Chinese,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, but that's.
Yeah, it's
I agree
interesting.
100% with you. And I think earlier on, maybe 10 minutes ago in this hall said, it's not our place to judge. I think it is, we can judge. We should be able to judge people.
Really?
I think we should be able to judge. It doesn't need to be aggressive or offensive, or as long as we're thinking critically and we're not really trying to poke at the other person's temper, we should be able to judge it if it's intellectual enough. See?
Yeah, because it's a social
I
phenomenon.
think we all judge in a way, but
But I think we should have the right to judge, even though it may annoy.
Yeah, because
it may annoy someone else.
if we don't have the ability to judge, we cannot fix it and we cannot identify it.
you want to fix it, even
No,
if you
no,
never
not fix
But
it.
it's not a problem.
Like
but
there's like a social phenomenon that if you cannot judge it, then you cannot identify it. And there are many problems in the world where we need to talk about.
I
And
think
it's not
you
about,
should be able to judge about literally anything that comes.
yeah, and that's
I
the.
don't know. I don't know. I disagree.
and that's
I
not-
think let the individual be the individual, and in terms of their culture, if they want to assume another culture, I think that's perfectly fine, in my opinion.
I would agree with that in saying that it's not certain, like you're saying. At least I don't think so. As in, you can adopt another culture while being of another origin by saying, say, I don't know, say Miss Hall in this
Yeah.
case, right? She's of Jamaican descent, yet she's adopted a British culture.
But that's different though. Because
Not
she grew
to
up. She grew
not
up
to
in-
the yeah, because I grew up there. I know
Yeah.
nothing else.
It's not
But
like-
also, my parents were strong Jamaican. When I went home, I was Jamaican. When I went to school,
You're British.
I was British.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So both are wrapped up very deeply. I can assimilate in one and then assimilate in the other. Which one do I prefer? I really don't know.
But it's different because.
And to push me into one,
Sorry.
to push me into one culture and then judge me for it, I just think there's something very wrong with that.
And
No,
this
that's
issue.
besides the point. That's besides the point. I'm not saying I'm going to judge you for identifying or being pushed into one culture because you clearly are Jamaican and British at the same time because of your family and you grew up in England. But what I meant is someone who has nothing to do with Germany, for example.
Okay.
I'm not talking about Alex. I'm not talking about
I
Alex.
don't
Let's-
identify as German.
Yeah, no, but if you're from like let's in China, and then you hold the passport, you don't.
So it seems to me as if you're saying, if somebody rejects their culture,
Yeah,
their predominant
I think you
culture,
should
and
always
assume
be.
another
I
culture,
think you always should be.
then that gives you
proud.
license to judge them.
Yeah, I think you always should be proud of where you're from originally.
You don't have to be proud of it.
No, okay, but you should
You don't
at
have
least
to-
accept
okay, yeah.
it. Accept it.
There's a fine line between being being a patriot and being proud of it. Like I'm Chinese, right? But like I don't say like I'm not a very proud Chinese because like I had nothing to do with my the fact that I'm Chinese, right?
No, it's all your parents.
Yeah. So like to me it's just like it's like I was randomly allocated into a family,
Yeah.
and it's like to me it doesn't mean anything. But I do identify as Chinese. Now to the extent to which whether I agree to their system, to their culture, to am I proud being like that's up to me, like that's
Yeah.
up to, right? But at the end of the day, it's just like I still know I'm a Chinese, and I don't have to be proud of it because you don't have a innate you don't have a random responsibility to be proud of from where you're from. But you have to. But my point is that everyone needs to identify, like needs to be.
Right. Let me.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, no, I actually, yeah.
Let me play devil's advocate for a little bit. So, you're proud to be Chinese, maybe because you look Chinese?
No, I'm not saying I'm proud to be Chinese.
No, right, I'm just saying. All right, then a person is proud to be Chinese if there's a Chinese and they look Chinese
Right.
and they adopt the culture and love the culture, and that's a Chinese.
Right.
But what if somebody looks a little bit like Raphael, or even
Like mixed.
a little bit?
Right.
For
Where-
the
where
viewers
I
out
could-
there, Raphael is mixed Asian and white, and he's
Right.
our half Asian. So
Where you couldn't tell
Mhm.
so much if
Right.
he was Chinese.
Mhm.
Would it be more acceptable to you if Raphael took on the culture that didn't make him innately Chinese. So, for example, if he was French and he adopted the French culture,
Right.
would that be more would mixed race Chinese,
Like allowed to have.
are they? Is it more favorable for them to have or adopt the new culture outside of the Chinese culture?
Well,
You know what I mean?
I think even Chinese, like full Chinese people, can do that. Like anyone has the right to subscribe and adopt any other culture, right? Like for example, you travel to China and you can travel to Dubai, right? You can live in Dubai. You have that right. Everyone has the right. Not just the fact that you're mixed. Maybe you're more, more likely to do it. But everyone has that right. But I think my point is that no matter where you go, no matter what culture you adopt, I think you still have to like understand that it's like a new system, a mode of thinking that you're trying to learn. It's not your innate
know your
It's not
roots,
inherent.
basically.
yeah, it's not your inherent.
You mean to know your
identity.
roots, pretty much.
Yeah, to know where
But
you're
then it
from.
also depends on where you were born, where you grew up, and what kind of education
Yeah.
you received. Because I could be full Chinese, but I could be American-born Chinese. They're not Chinese. The kids, they look Chinese, but they're actually American. They
They're
speak
not
English.
Chinese. You
They're
say that
basic-
again. They're not
But
Chinese.
They're Chinese, but they're not Chinese. They're,
Oh.
they're
American-born
ABCs,
Chinese.
ABCs.
Yeah, because
Because they grew up in England.
Yeah.
I mean, in the U.S., they speak American. They speak English.
Sick American.
They think in a more Western way than the
Yeah.
traditional Chinese.
Chinese looking, but not Chinese from
Yeah.
the Chinese
So
culture.
Like
ethnically
they-
completely
Yeah,
Chinese,
yeah.
yet culturally or
Yeah.
inside, what
And
they
that's-
identify with
yeah.
completely.
And that's where my point goes. Like, because I don't look at your ethnicity because that to me means nothing. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you've just been allocated to that
Right,
ethnicity.
right.
What you've been
As it
raised.
should be, to be honest.
Yeah, like,
It's luck.
yeah, like it's just a random. Like I could be any other ethnicity, but I happen to be Chinese, like Asian.
Yeah, okay.
So like, but it's
That's
like,
true.
and so like, but now it becomes like, and they feel like American. They're definitely American. And they should be because they're not, like they're not.
So is it a big issue here, the
No, it's not
identity
an issue, but like,
within YCIS?
but it's a social phenomenon. Just saying.
I think most of the community actually knows what they identify with more, or at least it doesn't really bother them. But obviously, since the world is becoming so connected, and we have mixed kids popping out here and there,
Sorry.
there's always gonna be.
I mean, there's also a problem like where like especially Americans. I saw the show. It's like they don't like when they see an American-born Chinese, they'll be like, where are you from? And there's like American. It's like, oh no, where are you really
Where
from?
you're really from?
Yeah,
Yeah. We get that in. I
Yeah.
get that in the UK. And where you from?
No.
Southampton. I was born in Southampton.
so like-
but, no. But where you really from?
Yeah.
Okay, all right then. I give up. I'm from Jamaica. Yeah.
You got me. You got me.
Yeah, so like
But yeah,
the appearance plays a big role.
absolutely.
Like, so.
But I can understand that too. I really can understand.
The phenotype. But
Do you know what? I'm here. I'm teaching, and there's a lot of things that you guys say, and I just completely ignore it because it just. But I'm white. Have I heard you said that once?
Yes, you have, Miss. No,
I know it's not that. I'm going to ask you to answer that. But there's another student who is also mixed race, who's also told me identified as white.
No, Miss.
Is that-
I say that sarcastically. I don't identify as white at all. Like, not at all.
It's just
Us
he gets-
Asians,
he gets-
me and our.
So we
No,
don't-
let me explain. This is very. Wherever I go, it's like this.
This you need to see this
I
viewer
go-
as he gets very animated now,
No,
almost
because-
jumping out of his
because
chair.
This is actually pretty. I've gotten this since I was a little kid. I go to Europe, I go to the Western countries. I'm Asian, but I come to the East, China, Japan, those places. They see me as white. So I don't even know anymore. I just don't know. I don't know what I am. I'm just
It's okay, you're
white.
Raphael.
I'm white and yellow, but I'm
Because
well.
like, at least so me and
I'm
Alex,
nice.
we made fun of him. Like
Yes,
whatever
and then Oscar said, and then Oscar said, "I'm the pure thing here."
Yeah, but then, see,
What is going on in my classroom right now?
because he does think that's like doesn't conform to our belief, like our behavior, or like to our.
Yeah.
And so we just say, oh, it's a white thing. And
I'm not exactly white. The thing is, people here forget that I'm also not white. I'm not
It's
completely
okay.
white.
So it's just that I hear it, but I just don't
Yeah.
participate in it.
But the thing is, when I say I'm white, I say it
Yeah,
sarcastically.
conversation.
I say it sarcastically.
You see,
Okay.
I don't identify
But
as
it,
white,
so your father is white, right?
pretty much.
So
Pretty much.
so But I know that other mixed race kids in this school, half Chinese.
There are in this school.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
do you mean? No.
I mean, more common is that those Chinese
Yeah,
work to
they-
go abroad to get a passport, to get a foreign
I
passport.
mean,
to-
yeah, the
That's
privileged
true.
Chinese.
That's like hi. What's up?
And to me, there's a big problem with that one because like they've already established a China, like they've already been assimilated into Chinese culture, and now they did like, and then to get a tool like a different like a foreign passport, and suddenly they identify themselves as somewhere else. That to me seems like a
That's a bit strange.
It's really bothering you that.
no, it's not really bothering me. It's just like if I had to do comment on it, I would say that's like I would not agree with that.
No, it bothers me. I'm not gonna lie. I am bothered by it. I'm bothered by it.
Because it does feel like, say if I was actually German, right? So I was born there and I look German. I confirm. Yeah, I
I
confirm
don't know
the
what German
culture.
looks like
The
now because it's so
superior-
multicultural there.
Superior.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
okay.
Golden.
Yeah, but I know
The
what you mean.
Aryans.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yes,
But
the indigenous one.
traditional
Yeah.
German, right? I feel like I would be offended if I saw somebody from a completely different culture, in this case, let's say Chinese culture, just pop over to my country, do whatever, take the requirements, grab the passport, and just leave.
Yes.
So to me, I would find it, if I were this fully German person, I would feel disrespected. Say, you're using my country's pride, my country's passport as a tool for you to be either access the world
Access
better.
systems,
or-
access their
yeah.
welfare or
Yeah.
whatever.
So you're not.
Especially,
In my eyes,
yeah.
you wouldn't be German because you're only here for the passport. You're only here for the documents,
I mean,
right?
okay,
You have nothing
yeah.
to do with my country, but
And
you
so-
take my thing. You take my identity and mask over yours and say it's your identity.
Yeah, I mean, good. And it's like I have a Australian passport.
And it's really good to be empathetic and look at the other side of things,
Yeah.
right, and what people are feeling. But yes, go on.
Like it's like if I go to Europe, like UK
Yeah.
or Canada or New Zealand, or even you go to Australia, they have a pact. It's like if you have one of these 4 passports,
Yeah.
if you go to those other 3 countries, you'll be treated like almost as like a citizen from there. So if I go to Britain with the Australian passport, I get much more benefits.
Yes.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
you go to Australia,
But you can see why people get these passports, you know.
Yeah.
You get the best of both worlds, and
yeah. And so
if it can happen, why not? And it's legal.
but
Why not?
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, we do understand why it would for a normal working class person from that country, why they feel spat on or disrespected by these kind of more privileged people from other countries.
I think the word you use is privileged. I mean, that video that I showed you, I mean, it's not just about color, it's just economics.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is the world of privilege.
I mean, the privilege
Uh,
because they have enough money to come go
yeah.
around and
Yeah, and I think,
collect benefits.
when I was in Jamaica, and this farmer was talking to me once, and he held up his his hand, and he said, "The world is not level. Everyone's at a different height, right? There will always be people who are impoverished. There'll always be somebody above in the hierarchy of things, and the privileges will favor the ones who have the money. So
But how do we get the money?
How
now
do we
that's
get the
that's
bag,
another issue.
miss?
I mean, do you think we should like?
Some people
So do you
wrong.
think more of a socialist system?
no, I'm not a socialist. I told you I'm a
Yeah, but it seems like
semi-conservative.
But you seem to
More
believe that
Republican.
you need to.
No, I recognize it. I recognize that there will always be poor people,
So you think
and
it's
there will always be
inevitable?
rich
No,
people,
but
and there will
utopia
always
doesn't
have that
exist.
divide.
Utopia does not
Yeah, so you,
exist.
Yeah.
you think it's inevitable and the best system out of.
Yeah, the best is to recognize it, like what you're doing now,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can, where you can in your localized neighborhoods, try to redress or address that inequality,
Yeah, it's
and look
impossible.
back,
What?
give,
Mhm.
but don't feel ashamed of where you are, because your parents have worked very hard
Put you here.
for you to take the place where you are at the moment. So don't walk around with a guilt about it, but just
Use the
recognize that these disparities and inequalities exist, and as I said, in your own localized way, see if you can help.
But what about it's very popular now in the West, especially in America, with like tax the rich kind of ideas. Like,
No, that's not me. I'm conservative.
yeah.
If
The
you wanna
rich
drag
make
it-
about 1 or 2%. I think if you're going to tax the middle class, that's where you're going to get the most benefit. Taxing the rich, just 1 or 2% of the working population,
But they
Yes,
hold-
you can tax them.
But they
It will
hold-
make us feel better, sleep better at night. But where you get most of the wealth, in my opinion, I don't study economics, is through the middle class.
But,
Wait, hold on. If we tie this back to our original topic, which is identity politics, many would say that your ideas do not conform with what you should be thinking.
Yes, and I've
Right.
already told you throughout the interview that I don't do what people think I should be doing. I think differently. But continue.
Which is good.
But do you think that, as let's say, if you're being initiated into the world of politics, would like people with the same identity as you be a good guide or a good role model to almost copy? So say, oh, this person of my identity is obviously going to be looking for what's best for him, right? But since I'm the same identity as him
No.
or she,
Yeah.
then if I support what he supports, then obviously I'm going to get those benefits as well because I'm the same identity with him.
Right.
So would you say that perhaps conforming with ideas that are widespread around your identity, would that be a good way of initiating yourself into like the politics sphere?
If I was thinking of going into politics,
Or just learning more about it. Say you're turning 18 and you have to go vote. So
Yeah.
who would you like learn from pretty much?
if I was 18 and I had to vote, young me has always been the same, right? So if you're looking at me, but your question is phrased in such a way that I would have to think about the majority, or think of it as an individual, because that's where I'm having a bit of an issue. I'm not quite sure what is it that, because I'm always going to think like me.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be conservative in my thinking. And the young politicians do go into the Republican parties, do go into conservative, and they look like me and have the same sort of politics like me. So I'm not quite sure what the question is. Rephrase it.
I'll phrase it, yeah, okay. So if it was
Yeah.
not specifically about you, but like the general population,
Right.
so say a African American person.
Okay, so it's a
who
black
is-
woman
yeah,
or black
or
woman.
whatever identity you want to identify with, right? So say, in this case, say a woman, right?
Right.
She turns 18 and she can vote for president, right? Say it's Hillary versus Trump, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that, oh look, women are voting for Hillary, Hillary's a woman, and with that perspective, could you not see why identity politics might be helpful to like those who are uninitiated and don't know much about the politics?
No, because I don't believe because she's a woman, she'd be best for women politics. I don't believe that at all. I think a man standing next to her might even be better than her in representing the politics for women. It's who you have around you, right? So it's not always the individual or that's going to represent that particular group the best. Man, woman, black, white. It's about their politics, the systems that they have in place,
that will benefit you.
the people. And that's why I'll go back, the Trump supporter. It's the systems around him that I think I could probably benefit from and my race
Yeah,
and people could
It's not
benefit
the
from.
individual.
Not the individual. I look
Yeah.
past that. I think it's very superficial.
Thank you for your insight, Ms. Hall.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you for taking your time to speak to
You
us.
guys are so articulate. Are you not like that in my classroom?
Cut!
No, okay, that's all she wrote.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
All right,
Hall.
well, thank you so much. Thanks for
Yeah,
giving me the
thank you.
opportunity. I'd love to hear the edited version.
You will when Alex does it.